Mark Lamont-Hill is back. He's an assistant professor of urban studies at Temple University and blogs at marklamonthill.com. Allison Kasic is new to the A-list today. She's an analyst with the Independent Women's Forum. Lise Wheel has been doing double duty for us today. She's a former prosecutor, Fox News legal analyst, of course, and the author of a soon-to-be-released book, The 51% Minority, How Women Still Are Not Equal and What You Can Do About It. We're going to get to that when it comes out. And today's wild card, we're very happy to have with us today Daphne Semyeli. I hope I said your name right, Daphne.
Perfect.
Okay, good. Yeah. She's an evening news anchor and managing editor of Show TV, which is one of Turkey's leading networks. So she brings a very interesting perspective to the table today. And Daphne, let me start with you, because you are from Turkey, as we just said, and he's talking about the way that the world perceives the United States. Is he right about what he's saying?
Actually, he is right, but the terminology he uses and the way he says the right things at the wrong place at the wrong time is just horrendous, I think, because the American people does not deserve this international pariah thing. I think he's attacking Bush, he's attacking the administration, he's attacking the policies, and he doesn't know anything about diplomacy. That is not a place to be talking about these kind of things. A U.S. senator should not be in Switzerland talking about these things about American people, American administration at an international platform, using this terminology. I think that's one of the reasons why he lost the elections.
Interesting take. Mark, what do you think?
I think what John Kerry's doing is really showing the greatest form of patriotism that you can do, and that's to critique, one's own country. That said, there is some irony to him talking about diplomacy at the same time that he's putting his foot in his mouth in public. Nevertheless, so I really believe that he's speaking the truth. He's saying that America's a pariah. It's unilateral policies and decision-making has pushed people away. It's made people not want to work with us. I think he's right to push for diplomacy.
Lise?
I think pariah is way too strong a term. And I hate to be unpolitical here, but isn't he irrelevant at this point? I mean, who's really listening to what John Kerry has to say? He ran, he lost, he's saying he's not running again. I really don't want to hear anything more about him.
Allison, what do you think?
Well, I think some people are listening. In America, we might know enough not to pay attention to John Kerry anymore, but I mean, he is an international figure. This is the last Democratic nominee for president. So, I mean, his actions have consequences, and people around the world are listening, and he should be a little more careful with how he frames things.
James, going back to sort of the issue of, we remember the botched joke, and it does seem that, many times, even going back to the campaign when he said, I voted for it before I voted against it, and then everybody who works for him has to come out and say, well, here's what he really meant. I'm curious, you know him. What is his response? How does he feel about it when these things happen?
Well, I think, in particular to the joke, I think John Kerry felt very badly about that. And it was that, Martha, and I'm glad you described it that way. It was a botched joke. He had a joke he was going to say, he misspoke, and he apologized for it. And, of course, John Kerry felt terrible about that, because no one should ever question that John Kerry supports our troops and our military leaders. And I think, there's a lot of people speaking before I got a chance to speak again. John Kerry was at a forum in Davos, Switzerland. John McCain was also in Davos. And John Kerry was asked a question, and he answered it. And I think, as your guests have said, he was right. And I think John Kerry is very relevant. He served this country for 30-plus years, and he will continue to serve. So I think he was right, and I think his words were correct.
All right, James Boyce, thank you very much for coming back to join us today. And we've got breaking news, as we've been telling you, out of West Virginia today. A sad story in Ghent, West Virginia. An explosion that leveled a gas station near a ski resort on Tuesday morning. It killed at least 4 people and seriously injured at least 9 others. We're going to continue to bring you, to update you on that tragic situation today in West Virginia when we come back. Stay with us. Well, a New Jersey school district wants to step up the monitoring of student alcohol use by conducting random alcohol screenings throughout the entire school year, kids. And if approved, Pequannock School District would be one of the few districts that's using a new test called ETG to tell whether or not anybody's been drinking over the last 80 hours. Joining me now is Pequannock School District Board Member Alberta Aleva. Thank you, Alberta, for being here today.
You're very welcome, Martha. It's a pleasure.
So why do this? Are you very concerned about the drinking, and why do it at school?
I really feel that as a member of the Board of Education, we have an obligation to every student in our school district to provide safe programs. We're not looking to punish kids, but we are looking to help them. If we can do that, and if we can save one student, I feel that we've done our job as a board member.
How much is drinking a problem in your school system, do you think? Is it cutting into the way kids are behaving and performing in school?
To be very honest with you, I don't think Pequannock Township has any more of a drug problem or an alcohol problem than anyone else. I think that we see evidences of it, the kids talk about it, and I think we need to provide some safety measures and good programs for them.
Last question, Alberto. What do you say to those who might say, look, schools need to focus on teaching and leave the rest of this to home and family?
I think that as a board member, I would have to say it is my obligation to help each and every child in our school district if we can do that.
All right, Alberto Oliva, thank you very much for joining us.
You're very welcome.
And
my pleasure.
We ask our A-list now, is this going too far? Let's see what they have to say. And Daphne, I wanted to ask you first because I said to her during the break, now, does this sound like a crazy story to you? In Turkey, are they testing kids on Monday mornings for alcohol consumption? What do you think?
No, they don't. They don't. But we don't have anything like alcohol enforcement in Turkey. Funny, it's not as serious deal as it is here in the United States. Maybe it's the forbidden fruit syndrome. I don't know. Because among kids, teenagers, it's not an issue in Turkey.
So drinking is not a big problem in schools?
Problem, no.
And what about alcoholism in the country of Turkey?
Not really. Not
a
really.
huge
not a
social
huge
issue for you guys.
No,
and Lise, you said as a mother, what did you say?
As a mother of a 14-year-old, I say test away. I mean, I'm sorry. I want to know what he's doing. I want to know what his friends are doing. And it takes 2 seconds to do it. Now, I will say, though, as a prosecutor, I was subject to random drug testing all of the time. I did fine, but I know that there are people who ate a poppy seed bagel, something like that, and that comes up positive for pot.
Oh, sure, they ate a poppy seed bagel. I've heard that one before.
That was a story that I heard.
Mark, what do you think about this?
I mean, I agree with you. You know, from a parental perspective, from a leadership perspective, of course, you want your 14-year-old to be tested. But, you know, give them a breathalyzer, give them a morning, alcohol swab before you leave the house. I want the state as far away from my personal life as possible in that way, because I worry that schools are becoming more and more sites of surveillance. Where you have metal detectors, you get scanned, you get a urine test, you get a breath test, you get all these things when you come to school.
I am with you, Mark.
Yeah.
I mean, my feeling as a parent is let me worry about that at home. If the school senses a problem, if they think there's an issue, they should call me. But I want the schools to focus on teaching. I want them to focus on learning, and I want them to not worry so much, unless there's an obvious problem. And I think you can tell, Allison. What do you think?
No, I think the parents in most cases can. And I think the real issue here, from my standpoint, is this is the perfect example of why we need to give parents more control over where they send their kids to school, because there's going to be a lot of parents out there who are in favor of the testing. Other people might justifiably think that, it's an invasion of privacy, and yet they're all forced to go to the same government school. I think if we could have some more choices involved there, some of these problems just might work, themselves out.
Except that your expectation of privacy as a student sort of ends at the schoolroom door. I mean, you don't have expectation of privacy in the schoolhouse because there do have to be all of these rules. That being said, of course, we don't want to impose too many